Any views or opinions expressed on KUR are not necessarily those of Kutztown University, Kutztown University Student Government, Kutztown University Student Services Incorporated, KUR staff and management, or other affiliated organizations.
I'm Stephen Maugeri, host of KU Live. Tune in every Tuesdays at 2 p.m. for all things Kutztown University. We will discuss everything ranging from school news, sports, and upcoming events, along with frequent appearances from student government to discuss new policies. We will also have members of ACE, the Association of Campus Events, to come in weekly to discuss what new activities are coming to the university. Tune in to 1670 AM or listen to us online at www.kutztown.edu/KUR or on your smartphone by downloading the TuneIn app. You can also listen to us via any phone by calling 610-465-7860. KUR, the radio voice of Kutztown University. KUR, the radio voice of Kutztown University. KUR Kutztown. Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of KU Live. I'm your host, Stephen Maugeri. The time right now is about 2:04 p.m. Eastern Time. And right now we have our loaded show for you today. We have Ms. Elise Trelligan from the Marketing and Development Coordinator of the Chincoteague Bay Field Station, which has relation to the university and it provides students to make a trip to Virginia and learn a lot about it gives educational opportunities through disciplinary, educational, and research opportunities through field-based and hands-on learning. We're speaking with her, and we also have our student body president, Joe Scabori, is going to come in to give us his, monthly update on what the student government's been up to and what they're doing to work for us. And we also have WEEU and for Nick Lawrence from WEEU in Reading, our good friends down there. He's coming in to speak with us and just, provide an extra great member of our panel of discussion for a wide range of topics. But first, we're going to speak with our first guest, Ms. Elise Trelligan, the Marketing and Development Coordinator for the Chincoteague Bay Field Station. Elise, you there?
Yes, I am.
Hi, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
We appreciate you coming on. Now, just so our viewers know, what is the Chincoteague Bay Field Station?
So we're a field station located in Waltz Island, Virginia. We provide a bunch of different programs from summer camps to homeschool programs. We have, field trips come down, middle school, elementary, high school. And then we do Boy Scouts and adult workshops. But I'm here to mostly talk about our college programs today.
Right. And so now that's just leading to my next question. How is Kutztown University involved with the field station?
So Kutztown is one of our 11 member universities, and all of our universities are based in Pennsylvania. So it's a little funny for us being, in Virginia, but so Kutztown's one of our senior member universities, and in addition to some of the major decision-making in the organization, students and faculty at KU are able to use the field station and our resources at really discounted costs.
Okay, well, that's great. And so now students get to, it says, right, according to the notes you gave me, it says the faculty and students utilize CBFS in three major ways. That's field trips, summer classes, and research. What does the research consist of? What do you study?
So it's mostly marine science, but we do a bunch of other things too. So, for example, we have a couple of professors that work down here with us, Adrienne Oakley and Wendy Ryan. And the research component allows cross-pollination between the universities. So professors and students develop partnerships through mutual participation with the other universities. And they utilize our field station as far as our research vessels. They stay on campus with us, and then we also have staff on site that they're able to work with.
Well, that's great. And so you said you take a wide variety of students. Do you have any limitations? Can any student sign up for this?
Yep, any student. Well, so for research, as far as research goes, you have to submit an application, and usually if your faculty member is on board with it, we're pretty much open to anybody wanting to do research. Other ways to get involved will be to come down and take a summer class with us, which that's actually why we'll be coming to KU next week. We'll be there on Tuesday. We'll be promoting some of our summer courses. We'll be talking at some of the introductory level classes and tabling in the campus center and talking to some of the clubs on campus.
That's great. And what's the ultimate selling point you're going to give to students, when that pass by to get them to possibly sign up for this?
I mean, it's a great opportunity to, take their research and their interest in marine biology to the next level, because they're really getting practical experiences when they come here. They're out in the field, they're in the marshes, they're utilizing professional equipment and all that sort of fun stuff. So it's a really great resume builder.
Right, that's great. And so just to make sure our viewers know, how do you sign up for this again?
So to sign up for our summer classes, you can visit our website, www.cbfieldstation.org, and then we have a college page right at the top. Or you could always just give us a call here at the field station, talk to our program coordinator, Allie Redman.
Okay, that's great. And just for the sake of discussion, what led you to just want to visit KU? Why is CBFS visiting KU?
So, we're a big believer in connecting to the students and making sure that everybody's aware of what we do, because it's not necessarily promoted throughout the university. And since, we're pretty far away from Kutztown University, it's hard to make those connections just through Facebook or email and that kind of stuff. So we're really hoping to reach out and let students know about some of the opportunities that we have.
Right. And is transportation provided by the university? That's something students may want to know.
So not to get down here, but we do have buses and vans and all sorts of stuff down here. So transportation to field sites we do provide. But typically if a professor's bringing a field trip down here, or if they're doing research with a faculty member, then typically they'll drive down, all together. And then students will carpool for the summer classes.
Right, and also if it's something that's related, it's school-related, I'm sure they can get some help funding from the university. That's something
I'm sure.
Yes. Okay, well, that's great. And so that we'd just like to thank you very much for coming on the show.
Great, thanks very much.
Thank you very much. That was Elise Charligan, the Marketing and Development Coordinator for the Chincoteague Bay Field Station. That's something I recommend everyone sign up for. And stay tuned for more KU Live.
ThePeopleChronicles.com is a community storytelling project out of Berks County, uplifting, challenging, moving stories, everyday people sharing their lives, their stories with all of us. If you are looking to be inspired and you want to share your story, find us today at ThePeopleChronicles.com.
And you can hear the People Chronicles every Thursday at 11:30 a.m. here on the radio voice, KUR.
KUR, the radio voice of Kutztown University, and Golden Bears football is your winning combination this fall. KUR is now your official radio source for all KU football broadcasts on the road. I'm Matt Santos. Join me live from the booth in my 23rd season of Covering the Team as my special guest and I bring you each and every exciting play from the 2014 road slate. We'll be at Slippery Rock, Gannon, Millersville, East Stroudsburg, Shippensburg, and Clarion, wherever the Golden Bears go. All broadcasts will begin 10 minutes before kickoff. That's KU football on the road, all this season on KUR, your exclusive radio home for Kutztown University Golden Bears football.
KUR, the radio voice of Kutztown University. KUR Kutztown. Hey everyone, welcome back to KU Live. I'm your host, Stephen Maugeri. We just finished up a very killer interview with Elise Charligan, the Marketing and Development Coordinator of the Chincoteague Bay Field Station, which is an educational field station down in Virginia that provides outstanding multidisciplinary educational and research opportunities through field-based and hands-on learning for a lot of science students, and it's something that they really encourage a lot of our students to get involved in and sign up for. And now we're moving on to our next guest, a guy who we haven't had on in a while, our very own student body president, Mr. Joe Scaboria. Welcome back.
Thanks, Stephen.
Great to have you back, and I'm sure you've been very busy, so we'll just get to it for a quick update. What's the student government body been up to past couple weeks?
Well, this week is midterm week here at Kutztown, and we can look back and see what we've accomplished in the first half of the semester and what we want to accomplish by December when we're let out. And a couple things we've got done so far. The first one, of course, is the concert, which is 4 days from now. Chance the Rapper is coming to Kutztown. He's been making stops all around the country, including big schools like University of Kentucky and such. So it's great that we grabbed him, and we're going to have a great homecoming this Saturday. I can't wait. Another thing that we've done is we had a big voter registration drive, September 23rd. We had it in the NPR upstairs. It was SGB and the Office of OSI. We worked together, and we got over 200 students registered to vote via TurboVote just on that day. So that was a big event, and because of the big election coming up in 3 weeks, we're really informing students to do their research these two candidates that are running for governor, research the men and women who are running for the House and Senate, and one of the key issues here is higher education and public education.
Huge.
And that's really something that we're trying to emphasize to students.
That's the biggest selling point right there, is that this has so much financial and monetary implications on our educational system that we're going to.
Right.
And it could affect tuition prices. So it's something we should all definitely do our
Absolutely.
research in. And you mentioned TurboVote.
Yeah.
Just to elaborate, for those who don't know, what is TurboVote?
Yes, I know Lee Caselli from the Office of Student Involvement. She was on KUR. She's the strongest proponent of TurboVote here on campus. She knows the inside and out of it. But it's a website, and it's a very, very simplified, easy website to garner young people to register to vote. Not only for the first time, but if you have moved addresses. For example, last year I was registered to vote at Golden Bear South. So I will be voting in Maxatone Township. This year I live on Main Street, so now I'm voting in the Kutztown borough. So just that short move, I got to go on TurboVote. Took me 5 minutes, changed my address. Now I'm voting at the train station and not the township building. But you can print out absentee ballots, which I believe you can still hand in. But the deadline to vote was October 6th, so that was the last day to register to vote. So now what we're working on with SGB is, transporting as many students as possible that are registered to the polls.
Right, and you're also delivering a very strong message where...
Yes.
You just go ahead and I'll let you describe this.
Yeah, well, continuing, our work from the summer, what we're really stressing is safety. And among other things, voter suppression. They took the poll away. It was an obvious political move.
Fits right into voter suppression.
Oh, absolutely. And what we're actually doing is we're going to have a march to the poll, and the poll is exactly 4.5 miles from Keystone, where the voting poll used to be for many, many years. And I've contacted us here at KUR, Electronic Media, the Keystone, and they're going to be with us filming and documenting this walk from campus to the poll, and we're going to be going right on 422. We're walking down the highway, and
422.
we're gonna make a scene, and hopefully people, this is the only way. We're taking this into our own hands now. We're going to document this, and we're gonna see what happens with this now, because this is, hands on. This is physically, walking to the polls. No
stronger political tool than over-exaggeration.
That's right.
I don't even think it's over-exaggerated. There's no better way to say, all right, this is what you're doing by, creating these boundaries. You're putting us in danger by having to. Some of the students don't have cars.
Exactly. Lots of students.
So lots of students don't, and just driving there up and back, it's inconvenient. And a lot of students, these pencil pushers in Harrisburg are probably thinking that maybe these students don't know enough or something like that, and maybe that may have implications on it. But either way, that's a great way to really deliver the message. And I'm glad the electronic media department's helping out with it.
Me too. One thing I just want to touch on. Dr. Paul Quinn, he's the president of the APSCUF Teachers Union. Him and the rest of APSCUF are working very close with student government on providing transportation to the poll. And we are working on either 1 or 2 buses, school buses, not vans, school buses, which will be making rounds throughout the day. Right now, this week, we're working on the exact details to find the best hours for the buses and the best routes. And what we're looking at right now is that lunchtime period between 11 and 1 on that Tuesday, because it would cover the free hour. And the route that we're looking at is not on 422, but we want these buses to take the back road through the farms to get right to the poll, so it's not held up in that congested 222.
Yeah, for sure. And that's great. We support you 100% behind that. And also, we're just going to mention that this, of course, is your first year, and I'm sure you're much more acclimated. What would be your number one goal? What's your number one goal at the end of the semester to accomplish?
At the end of the semester, like I said before, with our stance on trying to get as many students to the poll as possible, and to really make a point here with our walk and with how much we're getting students to the poll. The other thing we're doing, our goal for the end of the semester, is we are creating a new standing committee. And right now, SGB has 5 standing committees. which cover populations of students at Kutztown. This new standing committee would be called the Diversity United Standing Committee. It would include groups such as NAACP, Allies, Military Club, groups as that, which I've been working with the Office of Student Involvement. The exact definition of a diversity student organization is one that serves the constituents of subpopulations on campus. And right now, I wrote up a proposal with the help of Constitution Policies on SGB, and we're working on legislation, and now we're going to be starting to work on the budget. So
that's the biggest issue.
Yes, and these student groups, they love it. They came to us. They said, we want more of a student voice. We want a seat at SGB on Tuesdays, and these are exactly the sort of groups that we support, and this is time to give it to them.
Right, and we also will always welcome them to come on to this show here, because this is our community issue show. I'm willing to speak. I'm not the voice of the student government. That's your job, but this is where we would like people to come on. If they have something they want to talk about, have them contact me. And if anyone's listening, if you have an issue you'd like to address and it's linear and coherent, then you have a good argument, please submit it to me, and we'll see if we can bring you on for an interview, because we want not just me to talk. I'm not the voice of reason. I'm just here to arbitrate all the discussion.
Well, you do a great job.
Oh, thank you very much. And we would love to hear more students discuss about this. If you ever want to call on the show, the number is, I'm sorry, Mike, what was the show again? The number again? It's written over there, but I'm not looking at it.
610-683-4859.
And we'll probably mention that a couple more times in the show. So yeah, if any of you have any issues you'd like to discuss, just contact me, or you can of course go to the student government meetings. And when are they? Just so our students know.
Actually this evening, 5 o'clock in the formal dining room, MSU 223, under the staircase.
That's great. Yeah, so if you ever have something you want to talk about, they will listen. It's their job, and they work for us. And all right, thank you very much for coming on, Joe.
Hey, thanks for having me, Stephen.
We will look to have you on in a few weeks for another update.
Sounds good.
And stay tuned for more KU Live.
Attention December graduates. KUSSI is sponsoring the Fall 2014 Graduation Festival on Tuesday, October 28th from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. in the multipurpose room of the Student Union Building. The Graduation Festival is a one-stop shop for all of your December graduation needs. You will be able to verify the status of your graduation application, purchase your cap and gown, receive graduation tickets, order your class ring and announcements, and much more. The festivities will include giveaways and a chance to win one of our great graduation gift packages. All December graduates must attend the Fall 2014 Graduation Festival. If you are unable to attend this event or would like more information, please contact Matt Lothar, the Student Services Coordinator for KUSSI, at 484-646-4338 prior to the event. Congratulations! It's time!
Did you know that 80% of KU students don't binge drink?
Hanging posters again? Do you think that poster is really true?
Yes, it is true. I am a KU health ambassador and familiar with the audit. KU students participate in alcohol screening each year. We use the alcohol use disorder identification test. It is a simple way to screen and identify people who are at risk of developing alcohol problems. We have learned that the majority of students are taking care of business and focusing on academics.
Most of my friends don't drink, so I guess what this poster is saying is true.
Would you like to get a group of friends together for a bite to eat?
Sounds great. Text me later.
Kutztown Living, neighbor to neighbor.
Funded by the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board.
KUR, the radio voice of Kutztown University. KUR Kutztown. Hey everyone, welcome back to KU Live. The time right now is about 2:22 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm your host, Stephen Maugeri, and now we're moving on to our next segment of the show, where with every bi-weekly appearance by our friends at WEEU, their very own Nick Lawrence, a producer and show host at WEEU, is back to join us. Welcome back to the show, Nick.
Thank you, Steve. It's good to be here again. I would get excited about doing these shows with you.
The feeling is mutual, my friend. And we also have our student who's been shadowing us, Matt Walsh. Welcome back to the show.
Hi, Steve.
Good to have you. All right, now we've got a full discussion here, and there's a lot going on we're going to discuss about right now. We're going to discuss news that's just been all over the headlines these days. The Sayreville high school football team in high school in New Jersey is right now been really heavily criticized because of a sexual abuse scandal that went on in the locker room among its players. And what happens is, we're not going to give in the full details. They're a little too gruesome here, but what they do is they get seniors or upperclassmen, get freshman football players, they hold them against their will, and then they sexually abuse them. And it bothers me to my core. And it raises the question that we think about, the reason they're doing this, they think it's a ritual is the only way I can think is the reasoning behind this, because it's a rite of passage. And they want these players to realize, hey, you want to be, they argue that this is a way of how you form brotherhood and the bonds with us. And it just doesn't make sense. There's a better way to do that than just having to put people through such gruesome and emotionally draining processes. And that's just something that's just really bothers me. And I would love to hear everyone's thoughts on this. It's been all over the news. Feel free to call in at 610-683-4859. That's 610-683-4859. There's a lot that we've discussed. And Nick, remember we talked about this before the show. We mentioned how it's like a ritual. And a lot of people make the argument. They say, oh, well, you have to go through all this. Well, I had to go through the same thing. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I don't buy that. That's like saying, someone saying, hey, I did the blood unity ritual where we, cut our hands open and shake hands and do blood brothers, or I got this tattoo because I'm in this neighborhood. Just because someone else did doesn't mean you have to go through that same pain.
Well, no, I agree with you. And a lot of times people, it's like a monkey see, monkey do, or two wrongs don't make a right. I mean, we say this stuff all the time. People say, well, I did it. I had to go through it. Therefore, you have to go through it. Well, I mean, that's a ridiculous argument. If something's wrong, then it's wrong. You don't, because somebody else did it wrong for, 20 years, we're going to continue to do it wrong once you know it's that way.
Right. And I agree. And why would someone realize, oh my, I had to go through this. Why should anyone else have to go through it? What person in their mind would think that this person has to share the same pain and suffering physically and emotionally that I had to go through, and the embarrassment that comes from it?
Well, in this case also, it's assault. It's a sexual sexual assault, basically.
It's a felony.
It's not like they're just playing around with these kids. It's just not an easy thing. Actually, it's an assault. What they did, as you said, we're not going to mention, but people can find that out by going online exactly what they did to the kids. But so, Steve, what about this idea though that the superintendent canceled the entire football program, at least for this year, and he's also now thinking about doing that for next year. What's your take on it? What do you think about that? Was that the right thing to punish everybody for what these 6 or 7 kids did on the team?
Well, my contention is that you should instead of just taking 1 or 2 that possibly did it, you just you suspend the whole team for now and see what happens, because they want to find out, for all we know, this could have been going on for years before that, generations, because this is a factory right here. Apparently, Sayersville is very, very, it's a football powerhouse in New Jersey, and a lot of people probably moved to this area. So then this could have been going on for years, and they don't know, how many people were involved. They just don't want to make sure. And then also, it is similar to the Penn State scandal and how it makes it seem like football takes a superposition over everything. It's the most important aspect of the whole school. Nothing else matters, because of that, they want it becomes powerful, and then it develops a sense of elitism. These people, said, all right, you want to be in this elite fraternity of football players, even if it's just high school, you have to go through the same initiation. That's the common euphemism they use, is initiation. Mm-hmm. And we also it just brings up the question: do you, in anything, whether it's sports or any elite fraternity, there's elitism. Do you believe that that hazing is really, a right means of passage? Or do you think that, just because someone went through it, others should? Do you think that keeping this ritual alive is healthy for certain groups at all levels? We'd love to hear your opinions and thoughts. Our line's open. Give us a call at 610-683-4859, and that's 610-683-4859. And one other thing we also talked about, Nick, is that this is something that we've heard a lot from fraternities. This has been going on for way before probably either of us were even born. And I actually got this stat here on fraternities. Ads are showing up. And it says right here, this is according to the WashingtonTimes.com, more than 60 people have died since 2005 in fraternity-related incidents. and those are hazing, I'm assuming, and according to Bloomberg data. And then also more than 70 colleges and universities are under investigation after accusations that the institutions improperly handled sexual assault cases. And that's something that really, it can relate to us because we're college students, and there are fraternities here, and to join such a sacred group of brotherhood, there's a reason why not everyone's allowed to join. You have to go through a rush process. And we have no idea what hazing is, and hazing is also a very ambiguous term because of where do you draw the line? What's considered wrong or too much for your body or mind to handle? Some people may have more temperament, and it just is really a slippery slope. And I think that I'm not going to be, I don't really know much about the hazing culture here. I don't know what they define hazing is. I'm not in a fraternity myself, so I'm not going to be kind of the spokesperson for frats in a positive or negative light, but it's something that we should at least address. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think that fraternity culture is getting out of control, or just and not just college fraternities, just any group of sacred people in a group together, in a cult almost? And
so, Steve, how does it go from, let's say, an initiation, which many times it can be embarrassing, it may be fun. I mean, you laugh at because you're, somebody else at the expense of someone else's, embarrassment. But how did it get from that to doing these heinous things that were done as sexual? It's actually a sexual involvement, sexual assault. Matt, what do you think about that?
What's
your take on that, Matt?
What do you think, Matt?
When I first heard about the Sayreville scandal that's unfolding right now, it made me question. Do schools put athletics above the welfare of children? And I think that I do agree with the superintendent's decision. They should put football on the back burner for now, let this die down, and wait and see if there were more people involved with it.
So you mean like students? I don't know if we can call these guys children, but they are young, definitely.
Yeah.
And I know what you mean.
By the law, they're considered children
Correct.
or minors.
Correct. And that's another thing is that they are a couple of them are being charged as they're considering charging them as adults. Mm-hmm. And another question we have, do you think that they should be charged as an adult, or and based off the principle that should you be charged as an adult if you commit an adult crime like this over a repeated amount of times? We'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Just feel free to call in at 610-683-4859. That's 610-683-4859.
So, Steve, Matt brings up a good point. Do schools, not only that school, but schools in general, especially if they have if sports plays a big role in their lives, do they put those sports above the needs of the students in a sense, or in this case the athletes? But I mean, is the program more important to the school than the good of the kids involved?
Absolutely. I mean, it's in college football especially, and not Division II. We're a Division II school. I think at the major ones like Division I, like Penn State. This is just like Penn State's example, except it was done by the students, which is even worse. But it's all about these. I'm assuming that these booster clubs and this football program is getting a lot of money from people. They're alum. Ticket sales are going up. The school is getting a lot of money, and I'm not saying the school played any kind of role in convering it up and conspiring it or anything like that, but a big school like Penn State, which makes millions of dollars, that gets, I believe, $5 million just off of application fees, just from that. And then you get all the alum. They have the #1 alumni association in the country. They get more money than any other alumni association of any college. And then their football program brings so much money in. That's the way business works. It's become a business, and they don't pay any taxpayer money. It's amateurism, and I know it's not, but that's the way that college sports are right now at that level. And so as long as they're going back to the discussion, if it'll cost them money, if there are monetary implications on it, then universities are going to do what they can, or any business will do what they can to avoid having to, pay their way out. And yeah, you were saying something? So
how important is hazing to organizations like fraternities, sororities, teams? Is that really something that happens almost in every organization? Now, I think you looked up a story before we came on the air about that there was a hazing program that took place in a band.
Oh, many of those.
Right?
It goes way beyond just, like I was saying, any kind of, tightly knit group of people.
Yeah.
Any more than just, football or basketball or anything like that. We have the Ohio State Marching Band. They fired this summer. July 24th, Ohio State University fired the director of its renowned marching band on Thursday, and released a report describing a culture of harassment and alcohol abuse in which students were told to mimic sex acts, march down the aisle of a bus while others tried to pull their clothes off, and it just, it gets worse than that. I'm not going to read the whole thing. This is according to the New York Times, and that's just, it shows that they want, since this is such a small group and so few people get the privilege to getting to do this, it's not a right, it's a privilege to get to take place in something like this. They're going to make you pay your dues. And it's also another point I wanted to mention is elitism. It's a way of asserting their dominance because they're saying, oh, this kid comes in as some hot, like, for example, freshman on a football team. He was probably at this high school. They were probably, good football players coming in because they get a lot of good transfers. If someone comes in, they're thinking, all right, I've done my time here. This is some hotshot freshman. I'm going to put him in his place. That's sometimes what I think these fraternities do because they want to show that, we went through this. You're going to have to go through the same stuff we do through. We're in charge.
Hey, Matt, do kids in college and let's say in high school, do they see these kinds of acts as a moral question? Do they see this as immoral or they just see it as it's not – there's no morality attached to it. It's either something they do or they don't do. I'm just wondering how kids who are raised, many times raised in some type of a religious environment or religious background, Christian background for whatever religion they have, when somebody does, like what Steve just mentioned there about what happened on that bus, do they see that as it morally wrong or is it just it's just a social issue? It's not a moral issue. What do you think?
I think it's a kind of a combination of both because when you're playing in a sport, especially like football, you're kind of expected to act because football is a very aggressive, fast-moving sport, and you're kind of expected to be tough and
masculine. Very masculine sport, and sometimes this is a way of spewing that. Your masculinity on somebody.
But is that really masculine, though, to hurt somebody?
No, absolutely
sexually,
not.
Right?
Well, to assert dominate somebody,
That's
and
the word you're using.
Embarrassing someone like that. There's no more way to sort of just sinister way to degrade somebody, and that's just how it is. It's by comparison. It's psychology 101. You degrade someone, you feel better, and some of these, it's just wrong with these football players.
You wonder why, though. Hurting someone or degrading them, minimizing them gives you a sense of power. Is that like the jungle, like where the lions always attack the weakest part of the herd?
You mean like survival of the fittest?
Well, yeah.
Or maybe they're just sadists.
What is that all about? I mean, but why? Where does that come from? We're not talking about kids. In most cases, are not coming from these terrible backgrounds where they're uneducated, they're from poor families, and the kinds of excuses we make in society for bad behavior. Most of kids at college, generally speaking, they're educated. They have to pay money to go to school. Why would somebody get a kick out of hurting someone like that?
In a high school. Where
in a high school or college.
Where there's no, you don't try out. You just show up and say, hey, I want to play football. And I don't know why and then that must be what they think. They think, all right, what gives you the right to play for such a really renowned team like this? And I think it's sadism. I think these people, in psychology, I'm not going to lecture anybody, but people know how to, if you assert your dominance on someone and hurt someone, some people get, thrills out of that, and it's sickening.
It is pretty sick, right?
You always will feel stronger.
Because it gives them a sense of empowerment.
Exactly, and that harkens back to what I was talking about with elitism. So I would like to hear everyone's thoughts. Do you think that the question we will raise, do you believe that, and not just sports, but in any kind of group of tightly knit people and their initiation and indoctrination into a group, do you feel like the hazing is sort of getting out of control and they have too much power?
So, Stephen, in the ideal, sororities and fraternities are set up to do social work, right? In some sense.
Correct.
Is that the reason why most kids join sororities and fraternities? In your opinion, Matt, I can see what you think about that too. I mean, okay, we know that that's the social structure of fraternity, brotherhood.
Yeah, and
right?
there are different types of. I'm sorry, I apologize for cutting you off. Just one thing. One thing. There are different types of fraternities. There's social fraternities. Those are the big ones, that are partying all the time, and they do philanthropy work. Then there's multicultural fraternities. There's national honors fraternities. Then there's band fraternities. There's lots of different subsets of fraternities. Just the most prominent, the ones that are always getting on the news, are the ones at these big, giant southern schools, or just big schools in general.
Yeah. I mean, do the stereotypes, Matt, are they valid? Where you think, you hear about these stories, people join fraternities, sororities, have these big parties, drunken orgies. And is that a valid stereotype, or is it not?
Not necessarily, but I think what happens is some of these people, they see movies such as like Animal House, which takes Greek-like to the extreme, and
It's a
they
travesty.
think that they all have to act like John Belushi jugging down a bottle of Jack Daniels.
It's a complete travesty. I guarantee fraternity life is nothing like that. I mean, maybe at bigger schools, but still, it's a false misrepresentation. And sometimes the media does do that. Is another talking point, that sometimes we let a movie with a completely exaggerated view of something
Especially
control
Animal
our
House.
minds. Yeah, or Jaws.
That's a good one.
What
yeah.
about Jaws? After Jaws, you know how many thousands of sharks
People were
killed?
afraid to go to the beaches.
They were afraid to go to the beaches, and they started killing off sharks. That almost helped set the things in motion towards sharks becoming endangered because of that. And just like popular culture did that. But that's a whole separate
I would
discussion.
think, though, aren't there in the fraternities and sororities, let's say during a hazing process, or in this case with the kids at Sayreville there, isn't there somebody in the group that should have said, you know what, no, this is wrong. We're not going to do it. What is this whole idea of the peer pressure or the group mentality that people go along with, things that they know are wrong?
It's the backlash. They think, all right, I don't want to be the one guy to cry to go out and spill the beans. Then all of a sudden the whole team doesn't like him, and that could lead to some other abuse from his teammates. And we'd love to hear one thing. We'd like to hear your thoughts. Feel free to call in at 610-683-4859. That's 610-683-4859. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this. This is a very topic with a lot of different ways to approach it and a lot of different talking
And
points
I'd like
on
to ask any of the audience listening, without identifying themselves, have they ever been a victim in that sense, and a victim of hazing? Or they ever caught themselves being hazed, or were they ever in the process of joining in a hazing of someone and then regretted that action later on? So give us a call, 610-683-4058, 610-683-4058.
4859, actually.
Oh, pardon me.
That's,
Okay.
that's fine. I still have trouble memorizing
4859, okay.
610-683-4859.
Okay.
Yeah, just so, like he was saying, do you think, if you have a story like this that, will help strengthen the point that fraternity culture sometimes can transgress the boundaries of, what is ethically, right or permissible, then please share us. We won't ask your name. We would just love to hear, a story like this. If you don't feel like sharing it, that's perfectly fine. If you just have any kinds of thoughts on this, we would love to hear. Because this is something that's been discussed for years, and now the fact that it's going on in a high school,
right,
is what's really drawing all the media attention to it, and its problem is it's putting out the...
So that's sad in itself, isn't it? Okay, so we expect college students, maybe, or older kids to do things like this, but now it's filtering down into high school,
delinquents.
15 to 17-year-old kids.
And you're thinking maybe they're getting these ideas by watching these movies.
That's what I'm asking, yeah.
And the media may play a role in this, and popular culture does do that. You see all these,
Absolutely.
And Matt, I'll ask you about this in a second. You see all these, rap music with bad lyrics that promotes, gangster culture and stuff like that. It leads, and it's just really detrimental towards the growth of the brain, because when you're growing up, teenagers, it's pretty obvious. People say this. They don't use, the brain as much. Their brains are still developing. They have a lot to learn, and they're very, impressionable at this age. This is where they're kind of at the middle road. Where am I going to do with my life? And they're watching this, thinking, okay, this is what the older people do in college. If I do this hazing thing earlier, I'll be ready for it myself, and I'll know how to enforce it. And it just leads to something more like that. So, yeah, Matt, I'll just ask. You're an electronic media major. You're in the same major as me. Yeah. Do you think the media portrays, this kind of culture in sort of for profit in a way?
Yeah, without question. You don't just see this with athletics or fraternities. You see it in the sense like in the military as well. When somebody's going through, there's a specific scene I remember in the movie Full Metal Jacket where I think it's Gomer Private Pyle as
exactly what are you talking about?
The movie Full Metal Jacket, Stanley Kubrick. There's a scene, like the first half of the movie is set in boot camp at Parris Island for the Marines, and there's a particular scene where during like lights out or whatever, the drill sergeant, Gunnery Sergeant Hartman, catches Private Pyle with a jelly donut or Twinkies or something, and then in the middle of the night, all the people in the squad go and pelt him with bars of soap, and they basically beat the crap out of him, and then it makes him like very suicidal and disturbed, and
yeah, that's a whole new level, because that you're dealing with already the stress from boot camp, and now you have that. That's a whole
so
new level.
So these guys names the kids who did this. Now they're minors, right? And
they can't be named.
So
they
their
cannot
names
give names because of the law.
Their names wouldn't be put. I mean, is it something though that should change? You think? And what about the idea of the coaches? That old expression, "Nothing happens in a vacuum." Do you think somebody knew about it, but the coaches turned their heads the other way? They didn't want to bring this up. It's very similar to the Sandusky thing, isn't it? I mean, it's not because people protect the organization over the person in a sense. The individual.
It's about the money.
Yeah. What do you think?
Money is the root of all evil.
Yes, it is, and that's what. And a culture like this, it's about just people have become greedy about it, and and the ethics go out the window. They want to maintain, their steady income, and something like this, which could cause, not only their program, but their whole school be thrown into such a a dark light. It just is something that I can't exactly say I agree with them covering it up, but I understand how some people might, because they just don't want that to happen. But your image, if they were to figure out about this right away and reveal it, no problem. They'd be praised for it. Mm-hmm. You found out there was something wrong going on in your locker room, and you dealt with the problem accordingly right away. They would applaud you for that, and your program would be considered even stronger. But now, this program may be thrown away in perpetuity. It may be gone forever because of this. Football is a privilege, not a right. And something like this is just another version of the Penn State story, and it's involving player to player. These are teammates, and I played football for years growing up, and there was a sense of brotherhood, and there's some of my best friends that I played football with, and we never went through stuff like this. And why? I don't know how I would be able to call someone who would violate me in such a way my brother or my teammate, because football there are a lot of family values in that. Mm-hmm. And Matt, I'll ask you this: do you think that as a sports fan? Do you think that it sort of, damages the brotherhood, through a hazing debacle like this?
Yeah, it does, because especially in the sport like football, because you're supposed to be a tight-knit community. You're almost, you're like a family. You work out together, you go to games together, and you kind of, a lot of the times when you're playing high school football, they're people you've played with your entire lives, and you're kind of not expected to break away from them.
Well, there's a level of trust, right, that you build with each other. Not only on the field you have to trust each other, but off the field, because as you said, Matt, teams share a lot of time with each other, and it's a close-knit group of people. So what should happen? What if the coaches knew about this? What should happen to the coaches? We're talking about, the kids have been charged, but what about the coaches? What would happen if they find out the coaches knew this was going on and turn the other cheek on that?
Right, and I'd love to hear what the listeners, I keep calling them viewers, listeners, love to hear what our listeners think on this. 610-683-4859. That's 610-683-4859. What do you think should happen? Do you think the coaches knew about this but just turned their head the other way? Do you think that they, enforced it or promoted it or encouraged it? What do you think, is the backstory behind this? Because we're just, right now, this story has legs, and we're going to see a lot more unfold as these weeks come along, and I want to see what develops and what transpires from this. I want to see what happens. Because football is the reason that I think some of this happens in football teams a lot is because football, they usually spend the most time together because it's such a complex game. It's like a complicated game of chess, and you need to spend a lot of time together. You get to know your teammates, and for some reason, I don't know why, that's enough. That's enough to build brotherhood. The college football, our team here at Kutztown, they spend a ton of time together, and I highly doubt they go through any kind of hazing program like that. And I don't even think they do it all. And why would high school kids have to do this? Why do high school kids have to go through this at such a young age, which could have really traumatizing effect on them the rest of their lives?
Yeah, we haven't really heard about the victims because they're not going to release their names either. But you can imagine the psychological implications of somebody being violated by people that you supposedly trust. Right?
Exactly. What would the parents think of this? If my kid is, how do we know this could be going? This could be the tip of the iceberg for all we know. This could be going on at other high schools. There are thousands of high schools in this country, thousands of football powerhouses, where that is, there's king. Football is king, and it runs. It is the fuel that it feeds the fire that keeps the engine running, and it brings in a lot of money. And even in high schools, certain high schools, it can, and that's the problem here. This hazing it's such an elite. It's elitism. Mm-hmm. It's the fact that these high school athletes are in an elite group of football players, a tightly knit group that only so many get to join, that they're going to, say, hey, you're going to have to go through this indoctrination process,
What do you guys think if the schools, whether colleges or universities or high schools, banned all hazing? What do you think the repercussions of that would be, Matt? Do you think people would really be upset if no organization was allowed to haze? Because to me, I mean, I'm obviously older than you guys, but it seems like a stupid ritual, a stupid tradition to me to embarrass someone or hurt them in any way so that they can be part of an organization. That gives them, you get your stripes by being embarrassed or hurt in some way. What would happen if they got rid of all hazing? How do you think the students and then faculty and administration would respond to something like that?
I guess it depends on how you define hazing.
Exactly.
I feel like in a way that I think when people do these certain type of rituals, it's kind of like they view it as like an icebreaker, but by the same token, it's degrading somebody. And hazing,
one man's hazing is another man's just joking around.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that though. Where do
you draw the line?
Where do you draw the line? Steve, that's your question before. Yeah. What is acceptable? What is not acceptable? Obviously, most people would agree that sexual penetration or hurting somebody like that sexually should never happen. But what about up to that though?
Right. I think it's a matter of tolerance. One person may think, oh, okay, ha-ha, fellas, that's just me and my buddies joking around. Other people are like, all right, I'm not doing this, no way. And it could vary. I think it really matters on the person. I mean, some things, if you look at the NFL, they are much more, they have, they're run by by the executives, and it's a
they have much more
business.
to lose than high schools.
Yes, they do, and more than colleges do. And what they do is, if this were to happen, guys would lose their jobs. And for some reason in colleges they don't, in high schools they don't. But in the NFL, they never really see much really bad hazing. And I'm sure there are some hazing that's a little corrosive like this, but most of the time hazing's joking around. You'll see rookies get like, hey, you got to clean everyone's, sweaty socks or something like that. Mm-hmm. Or they'll put popcorn, fill your car full of popcorn or give you a pie to the face. That's harmless. That will go away. But emotional trauma like this and physical trauma.
Or even
the mental picture seared into your head.
Young people, younger kids, let's say I was talking to some of my students about this before, that when you're in ninth grade, in a sense, you look up to the older kids, and as you're a senior, you guys are seniors, you, in a sense, feel like you've earned your stripes as a senior and you have some level of dominance. But, when a young person looks up to you as a role model and then you violate that trust, what does that do to them? What do you think that does to them, Steve?
Once the trust is violated?
Yeah.
Well, I think I don't think that, if you're new, I think that it's not really much of a level of trust. You're kind of just, you're a clean slate. All right, here's how they do it. It's modeling. They want to model themselves after, which is probably what leads to, since they're so impressionable at age 14, is what leads to them to say, all right, this is my justification why I'm going to make sure next year I'm going to partake in the initiation of this freshman.
There you go. What was done unto me, I'll do unto you. And that's a strange. But that's what happens, right? If you've been abused or hurt. Now, some people get abused and hurt, and they never become abusers. Other people, though, because they've abused and hurt, they're going to do to someone else what was done to them. Yeah. And that's why I think this is such a kind of a sick or a sad situation, especially if it's filtering down to high school kids.
And another question worth bringing up, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on any of the stuff we've talked about for the past 20 minutes. At 610-683-4859. That's 610-683-4859. We would love to hear your thoughts. Is that I've thought about, do you think they do this at this high school because they're so impressionable and that they feel so helpless because they're smaller? These seniors are probably a little bigger and stronger.
Oh, it makes sense, right?
They can't really do much. And, going to their parents about it isn't going to help, because then it's like, all right, this kid's telling on me. And to young little teenagers with, that stuff is like it's a low blow to them. And then all of a sudden that creates discord in the entire locker room, and that's probably the reason why they keep it quiet. That, and of course the fact
so
that
Matt, when you get out of high school as a senior, you feel pretty important as a senior. Go to college, and all of a sudden you're back in the old role as a freshman. Now you're the lowest person on the totem pole again, right?
Wow, that's a big jump.
It is, right?
People that you look up to back to square one.
Because if you remember back when you were a freshman in high school, the seniors look big to you physically, right? In most cases. Of course,
absolutely.
They're big freshmen at times, but in general, so a ninth grader or a freshman, let's say in college, they're very vulnerable to the older students in the place, and I think that's where all this stuff happens. They're naive. They think that people are going to treat them with respect, and they get off to college or they join a football team, and this terrible thing happens. So it's got to have a psychological impact on them, I think.
Right, and that's why I'm using something I learned about. I took a juvenile delinquency class, and why they create such deviant acts. It's something about, it's part of the maturing process. A sociologist named Albert Bandura has something called learning theories or modeling theory, where I'll just get the actual definition of it right here. This is according to learning/theories.com, and it's modeling theory. People learn from one another via observation, imitation, and modeling, and it's called a bridge between behaviors and cognitive learning theories because it encompasses attention, memory, and motivation. And I think that derives from how, you observe, when you're, first off, you encounter it. You're Hayes is a freshman at this school, and then you notice from people that, then when you're an upperclassman, you see, you're observing, and you may be helping with it. And then before you know, you're like, all right, this is what they do. I need to model myself after these people in order to, fit in. And do you think that's what it is? Yeah.
Well, that brings up a point, Steve. No, maybe we don't think in terms of all of us being role models, do we?
No, we don't.
But actually, we are, to somebody.
Subconsciously.
Right? I mean, we think about it. So you're a senior, Matt's a senior. You guys, are you role models to the freshmen? Should you take on that responsibility?
Age immediately give the person right to be labeled a role model just because of their age.
But I think people
not by years, by what year they are academically.
Right. Okay.
And because we're as a senior, people are going to look up to me. People look up to me literally and figuratively, but still, they want to learn how it's done and how they feel like when you're a freshman, you got a clean slate, you have no idea what to expect in high school or college. So if the first thing you see is this, and this is this ridiculous, really corrosive nature of hazing, it's what you're going to think is, okay, this is how it's done. And it's really, really detrimental towards, I think the growth and maturity of kids. And that's why, it's been well documented that, it's just that there's evidence behind it. Males are maturing at a lot slower rate than females are because of this. They want to assert their dominance over, other males, and it's just and sometimes in the worst ways. And that's something I really can't stand to hear.
I'm fascinated by the way you guys think, and let me ask you, how difficult is it to be an individual in college? So you go to a party and you see everybody's drinking. Is it hard to make the decision not to do what everybody else is doing, or is it easy to do that today?
I think it's much easier because especially when you're going through the early stages of puberty, I think it's really, really hard because you're around an environment that you're not really exposed to, like the party atmosphere. Mm-hmm. But when you've reached the college age, I feel that you have an increased sense of awareness, and you should know when or when not to do this type of behavior.
Is it harder to be an individual, Steve?
I think it's...
What do you think? Is it hard to be an individual even in college? Or is there enough peer pressure in college that people will do what other people are doing?
I don't think it's as bad in college.
Contrary to what people say, and Matt has transferred here. I've been here for, this is my 4th year at Kutztown at a bigger school. I never felt any kind of pressure.
Okay.
No.
And whether it's through partying or, doing illicit drugs, and I've seen all of it, I'll say that. And I never felt pressure to it. I mean,
are you guys unique though? I mean, you know you're responsible. You're good students. You're responsible. You're in organizations. You take charge of your life. Are you unique? I mean, are you guys typical of, let's say, the college students here at
I don't see myself as like as someone who stands out as much. I mean, I got involved in the field I'm interested in, and I'm studying hard to go after the job I want. I don't see much of that really separates me from my fellow peers. I'm sure there are plenty of students like me, plenty of Steve Maugeris out there, plenty of Matt Walshes, and there are a lot of people that, are in similar situations as myself.
I feel that the cliques kind of break up in a sense when you're in college because when you go to a campus, college campus, especially in a place like Kutztown, everyone's unique in their own way.
And this school prides itself on its diversity. You see people from all different kinds of areas, whether it's gender, not just gender, ethnicity, backgrounds, upbringings, you name it. You've seen it all.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it opens your eye. It opens your eyes to something. And I know we're changing a different discussion, but I think it helps. There are ups and downs to this. I came from a rather affluent suburban neighborhood outside of Philadelphia. Upper middle class home. I was very fortunate. 2 very hardworking parents. If you're listening, Mom and Dad, I love you. I love what you do for me. And I come to kids here who are from less fortunate. This is a more blue-collar town than I'm used to. It was a little culture shock at first, but you got to learn to adapt. And that's something that I really think college teaches you is to, to look at every, every angle of how work works. I think we should also just go back to one final quick discussion and quick thing to talk about before we do have to close out the show is that the right now our student government, and in case you missed it, we had Student Body President Joe Scaboria here talking about this, that the county commissioners of the borough voted last year in August to move the polling place from Kutztown University to the Maxatoni Township building down 222, and that is an incredibly long walk for some students that don't have cars, and the commute is too tough, and it fits right into the parameters of voter suppression. So students are participating in it through and the electronic media department's going to document it. And Matt, I think are you participating in this?
I brought it up to Professor Neal that I would like to do a field reporting assignment on it because it's a very important issue because people don't realize how important voting is.
Especially our age. And this has so many implications on the education
usually
system.
When people lead revolutions, it's people of younger generations.
That's true. Yeah, well, very great discussion. Very excellent show. Great job by all of you. Thank you again to Nick Lawrence from WEU for joining us. He'll be back in 2 weeks. And have a good day. Thank you for listening to KU Live. I'm your host, Stephen Maugeri. Have a good one.